Thank you very much, Bob, for that insight. Our next panelist today is Carey Rutherford, seated right by Bob, and Carey's going to speak about acing the interview. Carey's got an extensive background in writing in various forms, different publications, and most recently he's launched a site called Music Alive that he writes about music and different things in the creative world. So he's going to share for us some of his tips on conducting an effective interview. Take it away, Carey.
Thanks. And forgot to mention, I was once chapter president. And
Oh,
a
very
board member for
sorry.
PWAC.
Very
Yes,
sorry.
yes.
Carey is past president
Past
of the PWAC Calgary
Paul, is
chapter.
the flamenco up?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Not the other one, but it can be the other one.
Okay. But the flamenco is first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah.
Hello, thanks for that, Doreen. So I want to discuss the beauty of interviewing. And the reason why I want to do that is because, to me, interviewing is not interrogation. That's not the type of thing that I do. I'm not an investigative journalist. I'm not trying to track politicians' criminal activities. What I'm trying to do when I speak to a subject, an interviewee, I'm the interviewer, is we're trying to build connections. We're working towards a mutual goal. In that regard, someone, the subject of the interview, they have a topic that they feel will enlighten readers for some reason. Some reason people are going to read this stuff, and I feel the same way about this topic. Again, I'm not hijacking them, I'm not attacking them, but I'm not surprising them with information. We're working towards a common goal because both of us feel that the readership will benefit in some way. This shared awareness between the subject and me as the interviewer, this allows us to move towards a common story, really, what happens. As I said, the subject is therefore not concerned that there's going to be a surprise question, they're not on the defensive, and we both have a sense of what the purpose is behind this conversation that we're having. So in regards to my own credibility as a writer, I've published 117 articles for a magazine that was called Examiner Online. They unfortunately are no longer online, which is why I have to have this copy. These were live music articles to do with a performance in Calgary and the Alberta area and Western Canada as well. And also I have published 64 social justice articles in Gay Calgary magazine over a 9-10 year period. This magazine fortunately does still exist, so that's a good thing, mostly because the publisher, like me, is running it himself. In that regard, we've also started up there somewhere a magazine called Music Alive. It is live music in the Calgary and Alberta area. We've produced about 15 articles in the last year. So the total of all those three is about 200 articles, the majority of which, over 80%, has been interviews, definitely. And that's why you're listening to this conversation right now. So the best and worst examples of these interviews. One of the best responses I had to an interview was for this magazine, actually. I interviewed one of the winners of RuPaul's Drag Race, which is a nationally syndicated television show. The person who I interviewed, she got back to the publisher when they were discussing images and distribution of articles, and she said it was one of the best interviews she'd ever done. Which, given that she had just toured North America, talking to large and small market television stations and radio stations and magazines, that was quite a comment. That was quite a feather in my cap. And I have to say, I mean, the interview did go very well. I enjoyed it as well. It got quite personal at some points, specifically around a chicken, which you'll have to find the article and read it to understand that. Similarly, other public relations people who I dealt with for these articles and the Music Alive articles, when I contacted them after doing the interview and gathering information on images and distribution again, often these public relations people tell me that their client, the subject of the interview, felt it was one of the better interviews they had done. And this has happened many times, and obviously it makes me feel really good. It's also really good for building this network because the PR people, they're my gateway to a whole host of artists, and many of them will send me contacts about upcoming tours and things that are happening in music. And so if they ever have positive feedback from their client, my subject, that's a really good thing, obviously. On the other hand, can you get the next,
Yeah,
the Gabriel?
Yes,
Gabriel?
It's all.
Okay. Gabriel Papillon, she's a marvelous musician, beautiful album she produced. I called it goth folk because I didn't really know what to call it. And when I was speaking to her, however, I got totally mired in details of production technology and trends in music, and she stopped me and said, have you even listened to the album? Because what I was talking about had nothing to do with the album she'd released. So I had to backpedal furiously and apologize profusely, and ultimately it worked out. We got a good article, we were both happy with it, but this kind of thing happens when this connection between the interviewee and the interviewer is not happening. Similarly, I was doing an article for this magazine, interviewing a Siksika elder who referred me to a Tsuut'ina, I was interviewing a Siksika storyteller who referred me to a Tsuut'ina elder. Now, Siksika Nation is part of the Blackfoot Confederacy. That includes the Carey First Nation, the Nakoda First Nation, and other First Nations groups. Tsuut'ina is just south and west of the city. And when I was speaking to that elder, he had had some bad experiences with the media. So he was kind of a hostile, he wasn't hostile. But anyways, he asked at the end of the interview that I not quote him, which really threw me off because I didn't know what to do. So I said, well, can I at least say that I spoke to the Blackfoot elder? And he informed me quite calmly, but in a not happy voice, that I'm not Blackfoot. And this was kind of the point of his problems with the media. So again, I had to apologize, backpedal. Ultimately, a very good article came from it. But those kinds of issues are reduced when you maintain a very good balance of power between you and the subject of your interview. In that regard, when I start an interview, the first thing I do is I tell the subject, this is who I am, this is what I've been doing, this is what the article is going to be about, this is what the magazine is intending by this article. I want them to be comfortable, I want them to know what both of us are going towards. So it's a mutual goal that we're working towards, and they're comfortable. What this does is it makes the interviewee more interested in the topic because it's something that they're interested in, obviously, and it makes them more relaxed because, again, they're not worried about being hijacked by a question about whatever, their lover's dog or something. And so the result is that we get a much more personal interview because when you're more relaxed, you tend to talk more internally. The information that you get from this interview is richer and more varied because, as anyone who's had a conversation that isn't comfortable and one that is, obviously you get to things that matter more to you when you're feeling comfortable with the conversation you're having. And so the results of this approach to interviewing is you get an interview that is not a disinterested, clued out, shallow interview. We have all, I'm sure, read interviews where the information is just regurgitated. We already know the stuff, it's just a different variation on something we know. Perhaps, if you know the topic well, you actually know more than the interviewee and the interviewer. They may be telling you stuff that is second rate. And this is the kind of interview that I'm not interested in doing at all. Oh, I forgot to mention, the flamenco article up there, that was actually Paul did that interview. The first article that was up there, Paul did the interview and the photos, and so it came from an interest in the topic. This kind of listening in the interview increases the credibility and longevity of the article, to my mind. Increases the credibility because you're not just getting surface details that someone's willing to give you, but you're learning more about internal topics, which also tend to result in I feel, an article with greater longevity because the article tends to have universals that when people read it, not everyone, but the right people when they read it, they will connect and relate to this article, and it will be significant to them for a long period of time. And last but not least, when doing this kind of interview, the best part is it's hardly even working. When the two of you are conversing towards a topic, towards sharing this information with the readership, it's not even working. I often hang up the phone and smile and think, wow, like I could get paid for this at some point. So this is the beauty of interview. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Carey.